You will have to give me just a few minutes, but yes, I will.
That dispatch call, was that related to the case in any way?
I don't believe it was. I don't remember what that phone call ended up being about. As a supervisor, if a lot of us are tied up at one time, they will tend to give me a phone call to let me know that a certain call is pending or something else is going on. Just to help keep the radio traffic free, they'll call me on my cell phone instead.
Did your entire squad respond to this particular call, or did somebody?
There was one deputy that remained in service.
Okay. Remained out, did not respond here, but remained on the road.
Correct.
Yeah.
653. Who can start a log? Who's the most expendable that can start a log? Let's put it that way.
This is. Can you start a crime scene log, please?
A log started. Sleds on the way. Let's push. Can we run the tape?
2007
there to there?
Yes.
From that last
Take-
pole
go
right
start
there
a log.
to that last
Get a
pole.
piece of paper, start writing names and times. You don't have any kind of paper?
Who's that individual right there in the center of the screen? To
That
the
would be
right?
Detective to the right.
Yes.
That would be Deputy Pruitt.
And what did you just ask him to do?
Start a crime scene log.
And tell the jury what that is, please.
Sure. So a crime scene log is established as soon as additional people start to arrive on scene. We document exactly who comes into the actual crime scene, as well as the exact time that they come into the crime scene.
Here, borrow that.
We can push it from that pole to that pole.
Yep. Sure. I do see some. That look old or fresh? Old, yes.
What are we doing right here with the tape?
So I'm securing it to the corner of that part of the shed to run it along to a shed on the opposite side of that area. We just expanded the crime scene out a little bit further.
To protect a larger area?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You'll need to speak more directly into the mic, or can you increase the volume, Madam Clerk, of that mic? Just a little.
This one that's working?
I'm referring to the witness.
Oh, sorry.
Increase his volume, or all right, thank you.
Yes, sir. I usually don't have a problem being too quiet, but speak up for us if you would, please. All right, so you're securing the crime scene tape. Let's proceed.
I'll just hold the light for you. Go all the way to that post. Marnie, let's just keep our fingers crossed. Yeah, I think we got it.
This is 5-3, all the responding units to Murdaugh Road, stop at the road. No one else come down the dirt road. Stop at the road.
That's 077 call. We're doing 66 on 95. Copy.
what's the other way in here?
From back that way, I guess. Where the house is, I guess.
Okay, that must be.
You referring to the whiskey mic? Left you off with a key? Affirmative.
heard on this video the term whiskey Mike. Can you tell me what that term refers to?
Yeah, when we say whiskey Mike, we're referring to a white male. A whiskey fox or whiskey foxtrot would be a white female.
And in the context of this particular scene, who's the whiskey Mike and who's the whiskey fox or whiskey foxtrot?
As I was approaching, you could hear me say to dispatch to my radio that there was a whiskey Mike, the whiskey Mike referring to Paul, whiskey fox referring to Maggie.
Do we have anything else? Negative. Travis?
To the very right of the screen, well, strike that. I'll wait.
Correct.
Like I was trying to say, I have a notepad, it's just I'm
Yes.
using the back side of all the paper, so all the front side of the paper has names and information on it.
Well, you can borrow mine for a minute. It's perfectly fine, Cody.
Wait a minute. I just didn't want you to be like, we're doing the fucking paper now. I have paper for calls.
Do you not have any crime scene log sheets? Hey, it's 717. I was asked to give you guys a call.
Have any of those.
Hi. Okay. Okay. I will inquire and I'll get back to you. Okay.
Yeah. That's all right, I'm gonna grab.
There, do you recognize those individuals?
I do.
Can you tell us who they are?
On the far left would be Detective Tyndall. In the forefront toward the center would be Captain Chapman. And on the other side of him, in the lighter colored shirt with the black vest, was Barry McCroy, worked for Fire Rescue.
Okay. Did the sheriff respond to this particular incident, to your recollection?
Yes, he did.
But as far as who was the senior officer actually working the scene, at this point in time until Sled arrives, who was it at this point?
That would be Captain Chapman.
Captain Chapman?
That's correct.
That's all right, I'm gonna grab a couple.
Well, I got some right here, Judge.
Hey, you want us to close that in?
Sir, was that?
You want us to close it in?
Yeah.
There's a guy in here, I don't know if you want me to let the other guy know, whoever Eric is, or just a caller. There's a guy over here that's wanting to talk to him, but I told him what he's
Don't even know who Eric is. I know an Alex over
Alex.
there.
Alex.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a guy over here that wants to talk to him.
Yeah, but I didn't know if you wanted me to go tell him that, or if you wanted me to just chill for a minute, or if you wanted me to escort him over.
He does not need to walk over
No,
there.
I mean a long way.
He does not need to go over there.
So you can stay there. Then.
He can.
Let me ask you this. Before you had referred to a brother arriving, is that correct?
Yes.
And was that a brother? Was he allowed to talk to Alec and go over to Alec?
I believe he did. I don't recall. I never actually interacted with him at all.
And then this discussion right here with Deputy Pruitt, what was going on right there?
So there was someone that had arrived on scene and wanted to go and speak with Mr. Murdaugh. I told him to just wait a minute on allowing him over there so we could determine the best way to allow them to talk. simply because the crime scene was so large and we did not want to contaminate anything that didn't need to be.
Okay. To your knowledge, was that individual, whoever it was, allowed to interact with Mr. Murdaugh?
I believe so. He was eventually, yes.
People that arrived were allowed to go see Mr. Murdaugh, is that correct?
That's correct.
He was not in custody at any time, is that correct?
No.
Gotcha.
I don't have the caller and the caller's brother's name in here, because I don't know their names yet, but I can get it. But I didn't.
I already wrote it in there.
Alright. I don't know where you were at. I just found the first empty page I can find.
Female victim, male caller.
And then the other guy, though, I mean, he hasn't came inside the tape yet.
Then don't have to worry about him. Just make sure you get the, here.
For me and you and all of us got here.
Oh my God.
Is that what you're about to say?
Yes.
What are you doing on the computer right here? Do you recall?
Yeah, so on those computers that are mounted in our patrol vehicles, we can see details of the call for service or other calls for service. In this case, I was looking at the information for the incident on Moselle to determine what units had been dispatched, what units arrived, and when they arrived, due to Deputy Pruitt trying to establish the crime scene log.
And you use the term call for service, which is a police term, but that essentially means responding to any emergency or
Any type of call. Any citizen that would call our dispatch center to request law enforcement assistance or fire rescue assistance, it's called, we just refer to it as a call for service.
I came on scene at 22:26.
22, 26?
Yes.
Yep.
Now, you say you came on scene at 22:26.
That's correct.
For those of us who don't know military time, can you tell us what that is?
That would be 10:26 p.m.
And that's June 7th, 2021?
That's correct.
And whoever U21 is with fire rescue, just write U21, fire rescue U21.
Yep.
And then
That was the same time as you?
he came on scene, yeah, same time as me, it's fine. Medic 18 at 22:27.
Had it started to rain more at this point?
Yeah, it had started raining at this point, yes.
$758 on scene 22:30. Same time as you. $653 on scene at 22:39.
22, 39?
Yep.
Those numbers that you're referring to, what do those represent?
So the numbers would be the badge numbers of individuals arriving on scene.
You're just recording when various people arrived in the computer?
They're recorded in the computer, so when we arrive on scene, we let dispatch know our number and that we're on scene. They log it into the computer, and then we can then put it on our crime scene log.
And that's all I have as far as times on this goes.
This is 787 Central. Alright. Copy. When you're clear, I have a call on Majestic of a suspicious vehicle. Copy. Where's that located? 223 Majestic Oak Way in Cottage 10-4. There's a Cottage unit that can assist. That'd be great.
Pretty sure Majestic Oaks is their jurisdiction anyway.
Central 505, I believe that's in our jurisdiction anyway, I'll take care of that.
Copy.
Twenty-three Majestic Oak.
Copy. Stand by, I'm trying to get it.
That individual walking off to the left of the screen, who was that?
The one walking away from the screen or that just approached?
Walking away.
That was Deputy McDowell.
All right, and then the center of the screen, who was that?
The one that just walked up and is in center screen now would be Captain Kraus.
All right, and then next to him, facing the body camera?
That would be Captain Chapman.
All right, and then to the far right.
Detective Tyndall.
The green trailblazer. Correction. It's unknown what type of vehicle she had.
Were there dogs in those kennels to your recollection?
There were a couple of dogs. I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember seeing some.
And the green trailblazer in her yard that belongs to her. She says she can only see the tail lights of the vehicle. She is also threatening to use them for possible. It happened about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, I'm in there, if you can, tell her to go down Buffalo.
Copy.
Yes, sir.
Am I?
We're gonna discuss it later and find out.
Okay, just I'll make sure I didn't miss something.
Nope.
That discussion right there, did that have anything to do with the crime scene or anything like that?
No, it was not related at all.
What'd you just put on your hands then?
Those would be latex gloves.
And the gloves you put on that you described earlier to the jury, what were those gloves?
Those are more tactical gloves. They're not necessarily ideal for handling any kind of evidence, but due to me already being out there next to the shotgun, I did not have any latex gloves on my person, so I used what was available.
All right. And why are you putting on latex gloves right now?
They were wanting to look under the sheet where Paul was, so just to prevent any kind of contamination of any possible evidence at all, we would just always put gloves on.
All right.
Just one out.
This side of the office thing.
Well, the dad's over there. Actually, hold on. Some people just won't do it.
Fire rescue might have some more sheets we can
That's
steal.
That's right, it shouldn't be about 5 to be all for
There is his wall part there.
laying on the ground. Something like that. I don't think you're gonna fit it in 300 blackout under there.
Not unless it's the shortest 300 blackouts ever been made.
I don't think he put that phone back.
What is that discussion about right there?
So the whole purpose for even trying to look up under him was to determine if there was an additional firearm on scene already, possibly under Paul. There was 300 blackout casings found near Maggie. They were trying to determine if there was possibly a 300 blackout rifle under Paul.
And were y'all concerned that there may be one under Paul?
We just trying to rule it out as a possibility
And what was that possibility then?
that he could have shot Maggie,
And then did what?
shot himself.
So you're looking to see if there's a gun underneath if he had shot himself and then fallen on top of it?
That's correct.
I haven't asked the dad about the phone, but dad did say he came over and checked their pulses.
Did you see a phone near Paul when you arrived on the scene?
Yes, there was a phone laying on top of him near his back pockets of his shorts.
Back it up just a little bit. Is that it right down there at the bottom?
That's it.
I don't think you're gonna fit it in 300 blackout under there.
Not unless it's the shortest 300 blackouts ever been made.
I don't think he put that phone back. I haven't asked the dad about the phone, but dad did say he came over and checked their pulses. Beyond that, I don't know what else he may have done.
He had a shotgun.
He did have a shotgun with him, and I have secured that in my vehicle.
Yeah, but it's an upward shot. Here's the one over the ceiling. Yeah, but that's because he took his head off.
Yep. So I've got multiple gunshots out of that window too.
Do we see a shell?
At least 3.
Shells.
Got it.
Right to the left of the screen, there appears to be, what does that appear to be to the very left of the screen?
There's some dog crates over there. On top of one of the dog crates is actually a dead chicken.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
A dead chicken
Okay.
on the far left-hand side of the screen.
Could you, Your Honor, with your permission, could you step down to the screen and point what you're talking about to the jury?
Okay.
It's difficult to see, but right here on top of that small dog crate was what appeared to be a dead chicken. I'm sure I could do that. I couldn't see it. Could you do it?
Do it again, please.
This area right here. Right. Thank you.
Yes.
You need in and out times or just times arrive? It's like if they exit multiple times and come back in.
You don't need to keep doing all that.
Okay. I wanted to make sure before.
Yeah.
Is that it, that your light's on right there?
That's correct. That's when I was really noticing the chicken. Just so you know, I've got at least 5 holes in the window in the back of that shed where rounds were exiting out the back that way.
Which is gonna be what we got because of the wide number. I mean, he was carrying a shotgun when we got it.
It is currently in my
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's stand for a moment. All right, we'll be seated. You may proceed.
That's the extent of the video that state will publish at this time, Your Honor. Let me ask you a few other questions if I could. Sergeant Green. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit number 5 to your testimony and see if you recognize this image.
Yes, sir. That would be an image from my body camera when I was looking at the tire tracks in the grass.
Have the input back to the Elmo, please. Your Honor, this time I would move to admit State's Exhibit 5, I believe, without objection.
Any objection to State's Exhibit number 5? It's admitted without objection.
Publish it, Your Honor.
Yes. Publish any exhibit that has been admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, it doesn't show up on the screen that great, but who is that person in the image right there?
That would be Mr. Murdaugh.
All right, and then just kind of in this area, it's more clear on the video, but that would be the tire
Yeah.
tracks you described earlier?
Yes, where I'm shining my flashlight at that point is where the tire tracks were.
We cut the video off after playing sort of the relevant parts, but what did you do for the remainder of this scene as the evening continued?
The remaining part of my role would have just been making sure the crime scene stayed secure, people stayed out of where they weren't supposed to be. Investigators were handling the remainder of the investigation.
Did eventually anyone from the SLED, the State Law Enforcement Division, show up?
They did. I don't believe that would have been captured on my body camera, but they did, yes.
At some point, did you like to turn your body camera off?
I did. I cleared it with my supervisor, Captain Kraus, to ensure that I would not be needed for any additional investigative purposes, talking to Mr. Murdaugh, or handling any additional evidence. And once that was okayed, I turned it off.
And so that was consistent with standard police procedures and practices and when to turn the body camera off?
That's correct.
You just didn't decide to do it willy-nilly or anything?
That's correct.
At what point, just roughly, do you remember, did you clear the scene or leave the scene?
I don't think I left the scene until several hours later.
Were you still there when SLED crime scene arrived?
Yes.
Did you remain the entire time they were there, or did you leave at some point?
I would have left prior to the end of my shift. I couldn't tell you the exact time that it was, but they were multiple units, including SLED and Carleton County investigators, still on scene when I left.
That's all the questions I have for this witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
It's going to take me a minute to set up some of the audio visual stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break at this time. Please go to the jury room. Please do not discuss the case. You may bring the jury. You may proceed.
Your Honor. Deputy Green, for my own edification, I'm curious. I called over several weeks, left you voicemails for you to call me back and talk. Have I not?
I haven't received any voicemails.
You don't check your voicemail?
Did you call my cell phone?
No, I called your office.
Okay.
I don't have your cell phone.
Okay. It's possible they sent you to the wrong one. I don't know.
But you've spent an extensive amount of time talking to Mr. Waters about your testimony, have you not?
I've spoken with him a few times, yes.
How many times?
3 or 4, maybe at least.
And has he reviewed with you the points he was trying to make?
We've discussed the body camera footage extensively.
Right. Let me go to a specific piece of video. I apologize, Your Honor, the AV situation requires me to have my AV guy come up and work from there. Did you get that list? So, as he's preparing this, you indicated, you were asked by Mr. Waters, said there was water on the ground, right? It hadn't been raining, and you saw water, right?
That's correct.
And as I understand it, and we're going to look at the video in just a minute, that water was primarily, at least what we see in your video, on the concrete area around the dog pens, correct?
That's what it appeared, yes.
Okay. And let's go to that first.
Don't worry. Share.
Sorry, Your Honor, the technology is difficult.
Glad to help. Glad to help.
Got it.
Don't worry. Share.
Go ahead a little bit further. Okay, back it up just a little bit, could you? Just back it up a little. Okay, yeah, now start right there. I think I can stop it just a second.
Don't worry. Share.
Okay, stop it. Now, you're walking down in front of the dog pens. Is this the water you're referring to?
Yes.
And you have dogs?
I have one dog.
You don't keep in a pen?
No, he stays in the house.
Okay. But if you had hunting dogs, and you had this line of, how many pens do you think there were?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, there's a lot.
8, 9, 10?
Sure.
And are you familiar with the concept of washing a pen out after a dog defecates in the pen?
I've never personally done it, but I'm sure that's what you would do to clean out a pen.
Okay. And in the pen, I mean, there's water inside the pens and outside the pens, correct?
That's what it looks like.
Okay. Go ahead. Go to the next one, please. I apologize. And again, we're looking at the dog pen, and the water appears to be outside the pen on the concrete.
I would object. I think that the video needs to be stopped for counsel to ask this question and for the witness to respond.
You're posing a question while playing a video,
I'm sorry, Aaron.
or making a statement while playing the video.
I'm sorry, the technology again is beyond my experience. Okay, so again, this shows the same area, shows water on the concrete outside these dog pens, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Go to the next one, please.
You don't need to see people that. Yeah.
So again, this shows, and actually there's a light shining and you see a couple dogs. So those pens are occupied by dogs. There's water outside the pen and inside the pen as if somebody had attempted to wash something out of the pens, correct?
There is water both inside and outside of the pen, yes.
You got one more? No, let's not do that. So I want you to go to the transcript. You need to switch it to the Again, I apologize, Your Honor, but the technology is more complicated than. Okay. So let's proceed on. Let's see if I can clarify a couple matters. Let's talk about this shotgun. This is the shotgun that Mr. Murdaugh was carrying or had leaning up against a car when you got there. Is that correct?
It was leaning up against that vehicle, yes.
And according to what you testified to just a moment ago, these are the shells, the chain of custody on the shotgun and the shell. They went together.
Whenever I released the shotgun to the SLED agent who took possession of it, I was unaware of any shells that may have been inside of it at the time that it was handed over. That was what was discovered inside the gun, is my understanding.
Okay. Where's that chain of evidence document? Okay, would you publish this to the jury, please?
You would like me to read it?
Yes, please.
The Camo Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 12-gauge shotgun, serial number U573210E17, one unfired shot shell 12-gauge Federal, one unfired shot shell Winchester 16-gauge.
Okay, so there's a 12-gauge shell and a 16-gauge shell.
Yes.
12-gauge shotgun.
Yes.
This may be way beyond your experience, but can you fire a 16-gauge shotgun shell from a 12-gauge shotgun?
I wouldn't recommend trying it.
You recommend what?
I would not recommend trying it. I don't know that it would actually work or not.
Could it result in damage to the person trying to fire the shotgun?
More than likely.
Jack, he's already said he doesn't have the answer to that.
Objection is overruled.
So you would not, you can actually harm yourself. It could blow up if you pull the trigger on a 16 gauge and a 12 gauge shotgun.
I've never tried it nor seen it tried, so I don't
And the
know.
reason you don't do that is because you could have personal harm from doing it, right?
It's possible.
So this shotgun, according to the chain of evidence you've just read, had a 16 gauge and a 12 gauge in it.
Correct.
And was leaning up against a car.
It was. The shotgun was.
Now, I'm sort of interested as to,
Sure.
I'm sort of interested as to why, well, let me just cut to the chase on this. There's discussions on this tape, or maybe others, that there was a theory that Paul had shot his mother and then shot himself. Is that correct? That's out on the scene.
Yes.
Because she had been shot multiple times, and he had been shot with a shotgun. At least one of the shots, we all believe was upward. That's why his brains were all over the ceiling.
That part I don't know. I wasn't involved in that part of it.
At the scene.
I did not discuss anything being shot upward. I don't recall saying that.
Did you hear discussions to that of your fellow officers?
Of a shot being fired upward? That's what it looked like they were saying, yes.
Okay. And further, I think in front of you, one of the officers saying that brains are on the ceiling, there's blood all over the place, correct?
I don't recall them saying brain was upward. I don't recall.
Okay. And further, you, as you're discussing this with them, indicate, let me make sure I get this correct. You indicate there are multiple, or someone indicates to you there are multiple blackout rounds around Maggie's body in the vicinity, correct?
Not rounds, but shell casings.
Sorry, shell casings. Now, let me ask you this. When you got there, didn't the fire chief and the fire department arrive before you did?
No, sir, I was first on scene.
Okay, did they arrive while you were there?
One of the fire rescue workers, I believe it was Barry McCroy.
And when you got there, we hear unidentified person, and in your notes you indicate it was the fire chief, I believe, that indicated to you, pointed out to you tire tracks, and you went over and looked at those tire tracks, and there were multiple tire tracks coming and going, correct?
I don't know that someone indicated them to me. I believe I just saw them.
Okay. And what did you do to preserve those?
The tire tracks, nothing.
And you certainly are not an expert in tire tracks.
I'm not.
So you couldn't tell whether it was multiple vehicles or one vehicle.
No,
And it may have been multiple vehicles.
may have been.
Did you take pictures of the tracks?
I did not take any pictures of the scene.
Instruct anyone to take pictures of the tracks?
No, sir, that's not my job.
When SLED arrived, did you tell them about the tracks?
No, sir, not my job.
Do you regret not doing that?
It's not part of my job description.
So what's your job to even tell them there were multiple tire tracks?
If it had come up, if I had been asked, yes.
And in addition to that, since they were not secured in any way, multiple vehicles, law enforcement vehicles and others, drove over those tracks.
That's possible. I wasn't over there the whole time to know what kind of vehicles were driving in the area.
Well, by the time SLED got there, did you strike that? You never took SLED over and pointed out tire tracks.
Not to my recollection, I did not.
Was there somebody there with your department that should have done that?
I have no idea what they do with their job descriptions as far as what they point out to additional investigators.
Did somebody from Fire and Rescue point out footprints?
I believe on my body camera there is a fire rescue individual pointing out some footprints.
Okay. Did you take pictures of those?
I did not.
Did you tell SLED about them?
I did not.
So nobody attempted to determine whether those were Maggie's footprints, Paul's footprints, or at least that night, there was no effort by you or your department to preserve those?
By me, no, I cannot speak for everyone else.
Okay. And let me ask you this. How about go to 4439, please? And let's watch 10, at least 10, if not 15 seconds of that. Okay, if you go to page 17, line 10.
Your Honor, I'd object. They're putting a transcript that's
No,
not
no, no,
been.
no, we're going to play the video.
It's up on the screen. It's up on the screen, Your Honor. I'd object.
I apologize.
Can you take it down, please? Thank you.
We prepared a transcript. It's synced with the video.
Okay, well, I object to that. Your Honor, I object. This transcript's not been provided. There's no need for a transcript. The officer is here. They can play the video and he can comment on it.
The transcript being offered.
Not all, we're using it to direct the audio-visual man to record.
Well, you have questions for the witness, questions for your IT guy. You're just reading, ready to proceed. I understand. We're waiting for you. Okay.
Yep.
I'm ready. What was the time? 17?
It's page 17. Line, let's start at line 8. No, I don't. I don't have that. That's my thought. It's just synced with the thing. It's not. Can you find it from there? Let me, rather than having to play this, let me just cut to the chase. It's taking too much time. On this transcript, on this tape, fire rescue person says to you, I believe he agreed with me, set of prints behind the trailer. You were told there's...
Jack, he's publishing again this
I'm
transcript.
not publishing, I'm asking you.
Your Honor,
Did you...
I object.
I haven't heard a question yet.
I'd like to make one. Were you told by fire and rescue there's a set of prints behind the trailer?
Yes.
Okay. And did he tell you that they attempted to not disturb those footprints in any way?
I don't recall exactly what was said.
Let me further ask you, you asked Mr. Murdaugh, we heard this on the tape, you talked about the tire tracks coming and going, and he told you those weren't his tire tracks, correct?
He did say that they were not.
Okay. And further, he indicated to you, Mr. Murdaugh did, that he felt this was related to the boat case, and you indicated you knew about the boat case, you read about the boat case.
That's correct.
And in the boat case, Paul had been charged with 3 counts of felony DUI, killing a young girl and wounding 2 others, correct?
I don't know much details about that case. I really don't.
Okay. But Mr. Murdaugh indicated to you that the threats made against Paul,
He did.
and that he even got in a fight once about it.
I believe he said punched.
Punched, okay. And so on the scene, he believed that Paul's death was connected to someone angry about the boat case, correct?
Object to that, Your Honor, as to what he believed. Asking
What?
the witness what another person believed.
Objection is overruled.
Thank you. On the scene, Mr. Murdaugh indicated to you he thought the death of his son was related to his son's involvement in the death of a young lady and the injury of 2 others in the boat case, correct?
It appeared that that's what he was getting at, yes.
That's on the tape. Now, let's talk a little bit about the preservation of the crime scene. What did you do other than put yellow tape up to preserve the crime scene?
That is about the extent of my job, is to put up the tape and make sure people that don't need to cross it don't cross it.
And I noticed that there were officers walking around putting little pieces of tape near shell casings.
There was one officer doing that, yes.
And in the process of doing that, I didn't see any lights other than maybe a flashlight. Were there any, did y'all put up any sort of high intensity lights so people could make sure they weren't stepping on something in the dark?
At that point, there was no light, no additional lighting that had been put up, no.
But you and your officers were walking through that entire area, is that correct?
We were walking in the area, yes.
Okay, and did you actually walk, I mean, the feed room, and let me, maybe this is the best way to do this. Holly, pictures, please. I'd like to use the Elmo. Photographs. I'm going to use the Elmo in just a moment to show this witness. I'm going to offer these into evidence without objection by the state, as I understand it.
Once they're marked, I have no objection. I would note they're graphic and they need to be shielded from view.
Elmo ready?
They can be marked. what would the exhibit numbers be for the defense? If defense 1 and 2 are admitted without objection.
So, thank you. I'm going to first show you the picture. See if you can identify it, please.
That would be a picture of Paul,
And the second one, which would be exhibit number 2.
picture of Maggie.
And when you say picture of Paul and picture of Maggie, these are crime scene photos, correct?
They appear to be, yes.
Is this what you saw that night?
Yes.
Both of these pictures?
Yes.
Accurately depict what you saw that night?
Yes.
You've got the screen there, but you can check.
So as you look at this, I want to make sure I understand. One of Paul's feet is still inside. This is the feed room behind him, correct?
Yes.
And this is his head, lots of blood, and this would be a part of his brain lying next to him, correct?
I don't know if that's part of his brain or not.
All right, so it's fair to say you didn't know whether that was part of his brain. When you first saw him, you didn't know whether his injuries were catastrophic and he was dead, or did you?
It was very clear that it was catastrophic.
Okay. That's fair. Now, when you came upon the scene, clearly this feed room was part of the crime scene, correct?
Yes.
Now, you're taught to keep the crime scene pristine, correct?
As pristine as possible, yes.
There was no reason for you to go in there, was there?
Me at the time, no.
Okay. Was there any reason for the police, before the Sled crime folks showed up, was there any reason for y'all to go in there?
There was no reason for me to go in there. I cannot speak if there was a reason for another officer to have gone in there.
Well, let me ask you this. Did y'all have any sort of crime scene expert with you that night, someone that processes crime scenes?
Investigators do process crime scenes.
Okay. Do you remember going in that feed room?
I don't remember if I did specifically or
But
not.
you shouldn't have if you did, correct?
It's not to say that I shouldn't have. If there was something that needed to be done in there, then yes.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I think one of the, and you would agree with me, one of the cardinal rules of a crime scene is keep it pristine. Don't walk over things. Try to preserve tire tracks. Get pictures of them. Footprints. All those sorts of things. Was somebody with the officers with you, were you in charge of the scene?
I was in charge of the deputies that were under my immediate supervision until someone higher than me arrived on scene.
And were those deputies directed by you or anyone to do something to preserve the tire tracks? Pictures? Cordon them off? Cover them up?
I did not give anyone that instruction, no.
So you didn't do that. In terms of Paul, where Paul was laying, was anybody instructed, put a cordon around him? There's no reason to go into the feed room. There's no reason to do anything obtrusive until the SLED crime scene processors. They're on the way at this point, right?
I believe they were, yes.
And so if okay, so let's put the other one up. And identify this for me, please.
That's Maggie Murdaugh.
Your Honor, may we approach your group?
Stop bugging me.
I'm sorry. And can you identify this for the jury, please?
That picture? Yeah. It's Maggie Murdaugh.
After she's been killed.
That's correct.
And by the way, when you saw her was it apparent that she was deceased? You believe? But have you ever seen a dead body before?
I have seen multiple, yes.
Many, right?
Yes.
So you're sort of an expert in this area, who's dead, who's not, who ought to get EMS there to check them out or not, correct? You make that call often?
Yes.
Okay. But you could understand, obviously, Alex Murdaugh's concern that they might be alive, that maybe, you're not saying that he shouldn't be concerned that somebody check out both Maggie and Paul to make sure they were dead, right?
He was very concerned about that, yes.
Okay. Now, as to Maggie Murdaugh, we see these numbers. Did y'all do these numbers, or were they done after y'all were there?
I don't know when those numbers were done. They were not placed by myself.
For your team?
I can't say that for sure, certain.
We see that in the video, that they're putting down yellow tape. They're not putting these down, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you also, according to the video we saw, a number of your officers are walking around marking where cartridges are, right?
They were.
Did they pick any of them up?
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, later on, we see them talking to you and others on the video where they're saying these rounds came from a blackout. They were blackout rounds, for blackout.
300 blackout, yes, sir.
Right. Did they get down on their hands and knees and look, or, did they?
You would have to ask them. I don't know what they did to know that they were 300 blackout rounds.
Well, who were those officers that were walking around her without a light on, perhaps stepping on evidence, correct? Who were those officers?
Deputy McDowell and Deputy Pruitt were both in that area.
Were they doing that pursuant to your instruction?
They were not specifically instructed to do it. They just took the initiative to do it.
Okay, I don't know. I want to play. What you got on the other sheet? You ready? Do I have to turn the Elmo off?
Are we good? Yep, we're good.
desk over there. That's all over.
Okay, so this is, your officer is putting a sheet on Paul's body?
Not putting a sheet on, the sheet was already there.
Already there, okay, continue please.
But people just, fire rescue might have some more sheets we can steal.
That's why it shouldn't be anybody. Law enforcement, so there is, it's law enforcement.
Who's that, stop. Who's that standing inside the feed room?
Just inside that doorway was
Yeah.
Deputy McDowell.
Okay, were you the present, oh, is that your body cams, you're watching him do it, right?
That's correct.
Should he have done that?
Stand where he's standing.
Standing inside the feed room?
It's part of the crime scene. We're all standing inside of the crime scene.
Inside what?
The crime scene, we are all standing in the same crime scene.
I understand the same crime scene, but clearly you believe, based on discussion, and everyone in your unit believed, that the fatal shot was made where he's basically standing, correct? That, in that area?
Where we are all standing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is that procedure to walk around on top of an area where shots have been fired? That perhaps, and I think even in this, they're talking about tissue or brain matter laying there. I mean, aren't you supposed to, you don't put anything on your feet?
Question, there's not a question in that statement.
Let's sustain him. Let's pose questions.
Did you in any way have your men or women put protective gear on their feet? I saw you put gloves on, but did they put anything to insulate themselves from contaminating the scene?
On their feet, no.
In many instances, departments around the country have people dress in a gown to keep their DNA, their hair from contaminating the scene. Did you do that?
We do not on road patrol with Gallatin County as standard practice, no.
You do not do that.
Not a standard practice, no.
Have you ever done that?
I have not.
Have you ever had something covering your feet when you're walking on a crime scene?
I couldn't tell you that for sure.
Now, if we later on find, and did you notice bloody footprints? Well, first of all, did you notice bloody footprints inside the feed room?
I don't remember seeing any.
Sorry?
I don't remember seeing any bloody footprints.
Okay. If there were bloody footprints in the feed room, could they have been created by you or your men?
They could have been created by anyone walking in that area, sure.
And you're walking in there, or your men are walking in there, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And you think that's standard operating procedure?
Well, you do your best not to contaminate anything.
And this is your best?
What you're looking at right now is standard procedure.
To walk in an area where there's blood, where there's brain matter, where there's, and I believe there was wadding laying on the floor?
I don't recall.
But you would agree with me that you have these procedures so that you don't contaminate the crime scene, so that you don't destroy evidence like those tire tracks or those footprints, or leave your DNA, or in some way alter the scene so that if, I mean, you would agree with me, so that, let me finish the question, so that if there is exculpatory or inculpatory evidence that would help you find the perpetrator and prosecute him, or evidence that would clear somebody, that was destroyed. Some of that was destroyed that night because you, your department, and maybe even SWED, didn't preserve that evidence. Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure if I fully understand your question.
The question is this: if you are exfoliating, you're standing, your men are standing in the spot, and there was evidence there, or the tire tracks that weren't preserved, or the footprints that weren't preserved, that evidence could either incriminate somebody or exculpate somebody. Could, correct?
Could, yes.
That's why you don't do this, right?
That's why you don't contaminate the evidence, correct? We put it around the whole area.
Did you put it so that folks couldn't drive in and out?
They were not to go past where my vehicle was parked. I believe that was the extent of the yellow tape.
Yeah, but between your vehicle and the entrance, there was none of those tire tracks were preserved.
Entrance of,
The property. That if somebody had driven into the property
you mean from the main road of Moselle Road?
from the main road,
All the vehicles were coming in on that driveway.
right. So if somebody had come in and left, who had committed the murders, whatever tire tracks that were left were obliterated by your men. Is that right?
It's possible.
Were you there when the coroner arrived?
Given my extent of the time there, I would assume so, but I don't remember
But you don't remember
specifically.
seeing the coroner?
I may have. I don't remember specifically.
Apparently, according to the body cam, you didn't talk to him.
Not on my body camera, but it could have been after the body camera was turned off. I don't know.
And why'd you turn it off?
Why was the body camera turned off?
Yeah.
Once my specific job of doing any primary investigation after my initial arrival is completed and I'm not going to be doing anything further to investigate, it's no longer needed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. You were asked a series of questions about contaminating evidence. Are you aware that any evidence was contaminated in this case?
I'm not.
Did you engage in everything you could to avoid contaminating evidence?
Yes.
Did you in fact instruct your deputies set up a crime scene and instruct them to avoid areas where evidence might be contaminated?
We did everything we possibly could to avoid contaminating evidence.
Your officers all have basic training in trying to avoid contamination of evidence?
Yes.
Are you also, though, as first responders in a fluid situation, doing the best you can to assess what's going on?
Correct.
It's not your job to do the actual crime scene investigation work, is that correct?
Not at all.
You were asked about whether or not you'd had any meetings with prosecutors. Is it common for law enforcement witnesses or any witnesses to meet with the prosecutors prior to a trial?
Very common.
Okay. Did anybody ask you to do anything but express your accurate and honest opinions and observations about what you observed at this scene?
No.
You were asked about this particular shotgun right here, this 12-gauge shotgun. This is the shotgun that Alec Murdaugh had when you arrived at the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you were asked about the shells right here. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you unload this weapon?
I did.
Was it unloaded by somebody else after you turned it over to them?
Yes.
You asked a little bit about the 300 blackout casings or cases that were at the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And just real quick, explain to the jury what a casing or a case is, please.
So a casing would be what would be left after the projectile has been fired through a weapon.
After it had been fired, the shell that comes out of the gun and lands on the ground near the victim. Is that
That's
correct?
That's correct.
So it's the remnants of a fired round. Is that right?
That's correct.
There were multiple ones of those blackout surrounding Maggie. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You were asked a lot about the tire tracks, and you just happened to notice those over behind the defendant's vehicle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we had a still image put into evidence, exhibit number 5. This is it right here, which is the still image. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. And the still image doesn't reflect as good as what the video does. Is that right? You can see it
The
clearly.
video shows it much better.
Much better. All right. Were these like tracks in the dirt, or were these just impressions in the grass, in the dewy grass?
They appear to be impressions on the dewy grass.
Okay.
Dewy grass.
All right. They weren't like tracks in the dirt that you saw, correct?
No.
All right. I'm going to go back to the video. I'm playing it at approximately 25 minutes and 11 seconds.
Me. From earlier, but only 2 were mine.
Did you go out this way at all?
No.
Police rep.
From me back.
Just go over to that corner of the building.
I'm almost to you. Let me see what we have first, and whether or not we can handle that part or not.
I see quite a few tire tracks in here. Were any of these you going in and out?
No, I came in here and I left one time and I came back.
Okay.
But the rest of them, maybe
Okay.
from earlier, but
Okay.
only 2 are mine.
Did you go out this way?
So the images that we just saw, those were the dewy impressions in the grass that you were just talking about, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the defendant said 2 of them were mine, and the rest of them may have been from earlier, is that correct?
Yes.
You were asked a little bit about the boat case. Did you have any detailed knowledge or understanding of the boat case when you arrived at the scene?
No.
You just knew very generally that there was some boat case, is that right?
Yes, it had been in the news.
Did you even realize that this was that Paul Murdaugh when you arrived on the scene?
Not until he had brought up the boat incident.
And who brought up the boat incident?
Mr. Murdaugh did.
And within a few minutes of you arriving, he's the one that brought up the boat incident, is that
He did.
correct?
He
And
did.
he offered that right out of the gate as a possible explanation for what happened here, is that right?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Your Honor. Did you find it unreasonable for him to say that his son, who'd been involved in this incident, who'd been threatened on numerous occasions, been punched, he told you he'd been punched, right?
He did.
Okay. That was a possible explanation, not implausible, for somebody killing Paul. You didn't bite back on him, did you?
No.
And it was, in his mind, apparently the only reasonable explanation that occurred, right?
I don't know what was in his
Well,
mind.
I mean, that's what he told you. That's what he believed.
That was the statement that he made, yes.
Okay. And just one other follow-up question. You were asked if there was any evidence, the dewy tire tracks. This was at 10 o'clock at night. Was there dew on the ground already?
It was pretty humid out. There was a lot of
It was
dew.
humid.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the morning.
This was not morning time.
So, and are you telling me no one could have looked, no expert could have looked and said, you know, that's a Suburban, that's a pickup truck, no one could do that? Or
I'm not going to pretend to know what an expert in that kind of stuff can and can't do.
But you're not an expert. Did you believe those tire tracks would last until SLED got there?
Yes, it appeared that they probably would.
Did you point them out to SLED?
Did I do it?
Did you point them out to SLED?
I did not.
You may step down. Call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Corporal McDowell.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give to the court in this trial shall be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. If you'll have a seat and adjust that microphone, make sure you speak into that microphone. State your name and spell your last name, please.
My name is Chad McDowell. The last name is spelled M-C-D-O-W-E-L-L.
Corporal McDowell, how you doing today?
Good.
Tell the jury where you work, please.
I work for College County Sheriff's Office. I'm assigned to the road patrol as a canine handler.
Okay, and can you just give us a quick background of who you are, where you grew up, and how you ended up in your career in law enforcement?
Sure. I grew up in Colleton County, went to Colleton County High School, went to college at Tri-County Technical College, where I studied criminal justice. Once I reached age, I came home, was hired by Colleton County Sheriff's Office, left for a couple of years to go work for Jasper County, and then came back to Colleton. I've been assigned to road patrol at Colleton.
All right. And what year did you first start working for Colleton County Sheriff's Department, or began your law enforcement career?
2016.
And what's your current, you said you're a corporal now, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what is your current assignment? What are your duties?
I'm still assigned to road patrol. I'm a K-9 handler.
All right, and you say K-9. Explain to the jury what that is.
So I have a K-9 that is assigned to me. We respond to certain calls, or if we're requested by another deputy for narcotics searches for suspects, things of that matter.
All right, and K-9 is a dog, correct?
That's correct.
All right, what's your dog's name?
Evo.
Evo? What kind of dog is Evo?
He's a Belgian Malinois.
Malinois?
Yep.
Is that kind of like a German Shepherd?
Kind of short-haired, pointy ears.
I got you. Short hair, pointy ears. Is Evo typically with you when you're out on patrol?
Yes, sir.
Was Evo with you the night of June 7th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Were you a corporal then at that time?
No, sir. I was a deputy.
All right. And who was on the squad that you were on?
Sergeant Daniel Green, Corporal Elise Janicki, myself, and Deputy Pruitt, Cody Pruitt.
All right. And so who was your immediate supervisor?
It would have been Corporal Janicki.
Okay. And then above that is?
Sergeant Green.
All right. And then above that?
Lieutenant Nettles.
All right. And then above that?
Captain Krause.
Okay. All right. What shift were you working the night of June 7th, 2021?
Yes, sir, I was.
And that was in Colleton County?
Yes, sir.
And what shift were you working that night?
Night shift.
Did you ultimately respond to a call for service at 4147 Moselle Road?
Yes, sir.
And you actually went there?
I did.
And did you come to the incident location at the kennels at that property at 4147 Moselle Road?
I did.
Is that in Colleton County?
It is.
Were you, when you arrived, what other first responders were on scene to your recollection?
Sergeant Green was there. There was one other fire rescue personnel vehicle in there. I believe the rest were staged, best I can remember. When I say staged, I mean at the head of the driveway. There may have been a couple of other apparatuses on scene.
And which, do you recall which driveway you entered? Did you enter the driveway near the kennels? Where you came upon the
Yes,
kennels?
sir. It was same driveway everyone else entered.
So you were parked behind
Sergeant Green.
Green's?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What did you do after that? After you got out of your vehicle, what did you do?
I approached the crime scene. I was trying to make my way to Sergeant Green to see what he needed me to do. I made my way through the crime scene as carefully as I could. I approached Sergeant Green, saw that he was interviewing the only person on scene, so I went back to my vehicle.
Okay. And did you see who he was interviewing?
Mr. Murdaugh, yes, sir.
Do you see him in the courtroom here today?
Yes, sir.
Can you point him out?
Yes, sir. He's in the middle, navy blue suit.
Your Honor, can the record reflect he's identified the defendant?
It does.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 6 to your testimony.
No objection.
Admitted, not objection.
And this is a disc, but I want you to take a look at it and see if you recognize this disc.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, and what is on this disc?
It'd be body cam footage from my body cam that I wore.
All right, and how do you know that this is that body cam footage?
It has my initials on it.
All right, so you reviewed this and put your initials on it, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. If I could get input, please. Let me ask you this. When you got this call for service, were you currently on another call for service, or are you just out on patrol?
No, sir, I was just out on patrol.
Once you got that call for service, what did you do? Did you activate your lights and sirens?
Activated lights and sirens and responded to the incident location.
And once you do that, do you make all haste to get to that incident location as fast, but it also as reasonably safe as you can?
Yes, sir.
Is that standard operating procedure?
Yes, sir.
first 10 minutes, sorry. The first 10 minutes of this body cam are essentially you driving to the scene, is that correct, roughly?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to fast forward to closer in time when you arrive. I heard proceed to the route. What was that?
I had a GPS activated on my phone.
Just like most people use, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Take a slight left turn. In a quarter mile, arrive at 4147 Moselle Road.
758 on sale on Moselle.
Are these the kennels that you saw when you arrived at the property?
Yes, sir.
And to the right is sort of the shed or the hangar, is that correct?
That's correct.
Let me ask you this. You're obviously serving as a road patrol officer, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you, what is your job as a road patrol officer, as a first responder, when you come upon a scene like this? What is your particular role as you arrive at something like this?
We go on scene, we secure the scene, meaning make sure there's no active threat for other arriving first responders. We'll preserve the scene to the best of our ability and then turn the scene over to arriving detectives.
When you arrive at a scene like this, are you constantly not only paying attention for any threat or anything like that, but also making sure that you don't disturb or any sort of evidence that may be at the scene?
Yes, sir.
Is that part of your general training and standard operating procedure?
It is.
You also have to couple that, though, with the duties of a first responder, which is to get to that scene, to secure it, make sure there's no active threats, and get it under control. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the duties of a first responder have both of those sort of balancing together. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
But are you constantly always looking around for evidence, not only to identify it, but also to assure that you don't disturb anything? Is that your general?
Objection, Your Honor, weeding.
Thank you, Your Honor. What is your general training as a road officer as it relates to coming upon a scene and looking for evidence?
Our number one duty would be safety. Number two, we're looking for evidence so as not to disturb it.
Thank you. Right there to the right, what is that to the right of the screen?
It'd be Miss Murdaugh's body.
Margaret Brandstetter, Murdaugh.
Who are those individuals right there?
Sergeant Green and Mr. Murdaugh.
How you doing?
What did the defendant say to you right there?
He said, "How are you doing?"
Did you know him?
No, sir.
How you doing? That's what he said?
Yes, sir.
What's her birthday?
I'm okay.
9/15/68.
Okay, and what's your son's first name? You said Paul?
Paul Terry Murdaugh.
And what's his birthday?
4. What are they covering him up?
Tell them they don't have to do that. They don't need to.
Hey, he's asked that if we don't have to disturb anything, not to. We've got a sled on the way.
We're just gonna cover them up because the family is here.
Yep.
And that's
All right, what were you asking fire and rescue to do at that point?
Just to try to preserve it the best they could. If they
You were
didn't
asking them- but what were you specifically asking them not to do?
cover the bodies if they didn't have to.
All right, and what was their response, though?
I couldn't make it out. I believe he said we're covering them for family responding. I couldn't make it out.
He's asked that if we don't have to disturb anything, not to. We've got a sled on the way.
So we're just gonna cover them up because the family is here,
Yep.
and that's it.
Do you recall now?
Again, it sounds like he says we're going to cover him up because of the family being here.
Okay. Does the family being here?
That's what it sounds like.
All right.
All right.
Right through here, go around this way here. So this is strong enough.
Yes, I agree.
I told everybody else to cancel, so they won't really else come down here.
Thank you. Hey, Cody, I need a piece of that tape whenever you get done.
What did you just ask Cody for?
A piece of tape, piece of crime scene tape.
All right. And who was Cody?
Deputy Pruitt, he's the one that you see there with the yellow crime scene tape.
And why did you ask Deputy Pruitt for some crime scene tape?
I had observed a shell casing on the ground. I wanted to mark it so that it didn't become disturbed.
Your general duties as an officer, you observed something and you asked for some tape to mark it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's what you were previously describing your role is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If y'all don't mind, just mark them. Do what? Okay. I got a casing right here, so watch your step.
That casing that you saw, did you recognize what kind of ammunition it was?
Yes, sir.
And what kind of ammunition was it?
300 blackout casing.
And how could you tell it was a 300 blackout casing?
Just my own personal experience. I own a 300 blackout, and I recognized it.
You recognize the case from your own experience?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It's 300 blackout.
Did you observe any dogs in the kennels?
I did.
Do you remember how many or where they were?
I do not remember.
More than one dog, though?
I don't remember.
They said they had several casings by her body, but this one will be a little bit harder to find later, so I want to mark it real fast.
When you marked that casing, were you careful not to disturb its location where you found it?
Yes, sir. I placed the tape beside it and then placed a rock on top so that it wouldn't blow away.
Why are there so many shell casings and only one?
Sorry to do that to everyone. Well, what was that loud noise?
It's just my windshield wipers.
And why was it making that noise?
They had removed all the moisture, I guess.
I don't see anybody. Can I see a couple more pieces? I found some more there.
Back there. Over there.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why it's 300 blackout. Trying to figure out why there's so many shell casings, but only one gunshot went to the back of each head. Not my job to figure that out. I'm just curious. I only saw one more casing, but just in case I see more. Daniel put his car in there. So, no. This is, I'll tell you about this in a minute. Alright, there's one there. There's blood over here. You looking at shell casings? 300 blackout. Sheriff?
Those cases that you were marking right there, did you at all disturb the location where you saw them?
No, sir.
Is it your job to be doing a crime scene collection for this case, or are you just doing that to assist those who will do that will arrive at a later time?
No, sir. I don't collect anything. I'm just marking it so that they're not disturbed.
Probably. Yeah, those will be easy to find. I was just marking a couple that were in the gravel. It might be harder to see at some point. Y'all familiar with this family?
I wasn't until he told me the names.
Alright, I'll fill you in later. I don't think there's gonna be anything for me and anybody to do here.
What did you just say right there?
I don't think there's going to be anything for me and Evo to do here.
All right, what did you mean by that?
There was no article search that needed to be conducted right then and there. Putting Evo on the ground could have caused more of a disturbance than just leaving him up.
Because that's a...
You said for Evo to do?
Yeah, for me and Evo. Please watch your...
Hey, watch this step. Huh?
Everyone's gonna be driving Murdaugh Road.
The gentleman in the white shirt is the president of the church. That is Paul Murdaugh. This is his mother. Paul Murdaugh was the guy in the voting accident.
Yeah.
It's gonna be retaliation from the family.
He did have a firearm whenever I told that it's a shotgun.
All right. I'm going to now show you a portion of what's been previously admitted to evidence as Exhibit 1. For the record, I'm starting at 4227. Who's that to the right of the screen right there?
That would be me.
All right, and what are you about to do?
Step inside and assist CID with lifting that sheet.
All right, and were you asked to do that?
Yes, sir.
And who asked you to do that?
Captain Chapman.
All right, and where's Captain Chapman in this image?
In the middle
And is he a senior officer to you?
at that time.
Okay. And I noticed before you moved, what did you do?
Turned my light on
And why did you turn on your light?
so that I could plainly see what was underneath me where I was going.
Did you disturb any evidence or anything as you started to go into the feed room?
No, sir.
Were you careful to avoid doing that?
Yes, sir.
Did you kick any shell casings or waddings or anything like that when you went into the feed room?
No, sir.
Did you step on any bloody footprints when you went into the feed room?
No, sir.
If you had seen something like that before you stepped in there, what would you have done?
I would have stopped and notified the detective.
Well, the dad's over there. Actually, hold on. The people just want to do. Fire rescue might have some more sheets we can steal. That's right. It shouldn't be like law enforcement.
Do you recall what, if anything, was laying on Paul's rear end?
His cell phone, or a cell phone.
Is that it in this image right here?
Yes, sir.
This is the shortest of the blackouts ever made. I haven't asked the dad about the phone, but dad did say he came over and checked the pulses. Beyond that, I don't know what else he did. He did have a shotgun with him. I have secured that in my vehicle.
Did you kind of jump out of the feed room just then?
Yes, sir.
Did you turn on your light before you did so?
I believe so.
Watch it again. Did you jump out when you left the feed room?
Yes, sir.
And why'd you jump out like that?
Try not to disturb the body. It was easier to leap out than to try to step.
Did you enter the feed room at any point after that, to your recollection?
Not to my recollection.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit Number 1 and see if you recognize this particular image.
Yes, sir.
I'll switch inputs, please. Does that appear to, is that how you found Paul when you arrived at the scene?
Yes, sir.
And were his hands underneath him in that fashion when you arrived at the scene?
Yes, sir.
You're all right. Have State's Exhibit 7, I believe, without objection. Without alternate evidence.
Objection.
I'll show you what's been marked as Exhibit 7. and see if you recognize that image.
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
It's a still image of video of my body-worn camera.
Is that a still image of when the defendant said, "How you doing?" when you walked up?
Yes, sir.
Court's indulgence, one moment, Your Honor. Nothing further from this witness at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Please, Court, Your Honor. So, when you got to the scene, who was your supervisor?
Can you repeat that question? I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. But that's okay. I'll speak a little bit louder. When you got to the scene, who was your supervisor?
Sergeant Green.
Sergeant Green. And I believe Sergeant Green was instructing you all to put some yellow tape up. You did some of that?
No, sir.
You didn't do any of that?
Deputy
Okay.
Pruitt, yes, but I didn't know.
What was Sergeant Green? What was his instructions to you? What were you there to do? Number one, let me withdraw that question. Were you there to apprehend somebody?
Not at the time, no, sir. I was just there to assist where needed.
Assist doing what?
Whatever was needed of me.
Were you all attempting to determine what happened?
We there as initial responders were there to secure the scene.
Okay, secure the scene. And secure the scene for further processing by SLED?
By our investigators, I learned later on that SLED was responding as well.
So let me, by way of example, you went down to where Paul's body was. It was covered with a sheet. You see that on the video, correct?
Not when I initially responded, but yes, sir.
No, but the video we just saw.
Yes, sir.
And why were y'all, what was there a purpose of going down there and pulling the sheet back, looking around it?
I believe they were looking for another weapon.
What kind of weapon?
I believe they were looking for a 300 blackout.
But, I mean, we saw in the picture, if you look at Paul's body, there's no 300 blackout laying next to him, correct?
No, sir.
I'm correct.
Yes, you are correct. No, there was no 300 blackout laying beside him.
Okay, so you say you're down there looking for another weapon. Where were you looking for another weapon?
I wasn't, sir. I was assisting lifting the sheet for detectives.
And you concede you stepped into the feed room.
Yes, sir.
And based on the way Paul was laying, and of course you did have a flashlight and you were looking, trying not to step on anything. Did you have anything to insulate your feet? And in some jurisdictions they have little baggy things to put over their feet to make sure they don't contaminate the scene. Did you have those on?
No, sir.
And did you, when you stepped in, you got a flashlight, what you were looking at with the visible eye, you're determining you weren't disturbing the scene, correct?
That's correct.
You made an effort not to.
Yes, sir.
You don't know whether you did or you didn't.
To my knowledge, I did not.
But you can't say that you didn't. To your knowledge.
Can you repeat that?
To your knowledge, you didn't.
To my knowledge, I did not disturb anything.
Okay. But you would concede there's microscopic evidence sometimes of crime scenes, correct?
Yes, sir, that's possible.
And you didn't have a microscope?
No, sir.
But like the SLED crime team would look very closely, would they not? They would not, I mean, as far as I could tell, you were looking basically for 3 or 4 feet away from the floor, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what you can see with the naked eye at night with a flashlight from 3 or 4 feet is what you base your opinion you didn't disturb anything.
That's correct.
Now, and you don't know why they were looking for another weapon, but you don't know what other weapon, you don't know where that weapon might have been, and again, multiple deputies had seen Paul's body before He was covered with a sheet, right?
Myself, Sergeant Green did.
Okay. Were y'all, in your presence, any of the other officers with you there that night, did any of them discuss this as a possible murder-suicide?
It's possible. It's not to my recollection.
Okay. Now, when you were going out and we saw you mark a shell casing, was that in the grass or on the dirt road?
I believe the first one was in gravel.
In the gravel, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but you found others, right?
Yes, sir.
And to do that, you had to walk around in the grass?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, you've got a flashlight, you're looking, and you don't know what was in the grass that you may have disturbed around those shell casings?
No, sir.
You don't know?
No, sir.
You may have disturbed something.
It's possible.
And I guess what I'm trying to ask is, why then were you trying to look for shell casings? Why couldn't you wait till the next morning? Why was this urgency? I mean, was somebody getting away, or, I mean, I don't quite understand why.
I can't answer that. I don't know. I didn't know if somebody was getting away or not.
Did somebody instruct you to go find shell casings?
No, sir.
You just did it on your own initiative?
Yes, sir.
And you concede that you may have disturbed or destroyed evidence in that process?
Microscopic or something I didn't see.
Well, microscopic, something down in the grass. I mean, you're walking on grass, right? Not
Yes,
not
sir.
a smooth surface like in the shed, in the feed room, but it's grass at night, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I guess what I'm trying to wonder is what y'all were doing. Were you trying to solve a crime? Were you trying to just index everything was there? And when did you find out sled was coming?
So we're trying to mark everything there. As you can tell, there were multiple units going back and forth, fire rescue as well as sheriff's office. We try to mark it so that it brings awareness to them and it doesn't become disturbed.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you. I can't hear you.
There were multiple units on scene,
Right.
sheriff's office as well as fire rescue.
Right.
The reason that I saw urgency to mark those shell casings is so that it brings awareness to those of us that were walking around and they don't become disturbed.
Well, that brings up the question: should you have been walking around? What if you got two dead people? Whoever the perpetrator was, at that point, y'all hadn't identified, had you?
No, sir.
Okay, so the perpetrator may be in the woods across the street, as far as you know at that point, right?
Could have been anywhere.
Right. So you're not trying to solve a crime, you're processing a scene?
I'm not processing anything.
You don't know what you're doing.
I just told you what I was doing, sir.
You're marking pieces of evidence.
Yes, sir.
And the urgency to do that was so that no one else would walk over them
Yes, sir.
while you're walking around them.
Around. Yes, sir.
Well, you don't know whether you actually stepped on one or not, do you?
I was very careful not to.
Okay. Now, let me also ask you this, that the pattern of the first shell casing was how far away from the feed room?
I can't say.
That you found?
The first shell casing I found?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
10 feet, 20 feet, more than me, further than?
Probably about the same distance from me to you.
Okay. From the feed room door?
Yes, sir.
Now, I understand, and you got a blackout, right?
Yes, sir.
And when you fire that, does it eject to the right or the left?
To the right. Mine does.
Okay. So if the feed room is where I am, that shell casing ejected to the right and forward, right and back? What do you know?
Are you asking where the shell casing was in relation to the door? It would have been forward and right of the door.
Forward and right of the door. And there was the pattern of casings leading, do they all lead to her body?
I can't remember.
Did you sketch where you found them?
No, sir. I did not do a crime scene sketch.
Have you ever done a crime scene sketch?
No, sir.
Tell me your training in crime scene processing.
It's very basic, limited, what you would get at the Criminal Justice Academy.
Very basic.
Yes, sir.
So you're not a crime scene processor. again, and I'm not asking this question repetitively, I'm just trying to puzzle it out. What, you don't know what your role was there?
I was a first responder.
Well, they were dead, Paul and Maggie, right? You couldn't render them any aid.
Your Honor, I would object. No question in that statement.
Is there a question?
Could you have rendered them aid? Were they in a physical condition where your assistance would have helped?
No, sir.
They were dead, correct?
Are you asking? Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, let me show you a couple of these clips and ask about them here, and I've got times. You don't have to go through the. And then be brief. Okay, would you go to 1040? Is that green? Yes. I don't want to. Yes. Okay, this is you walking, and these are the dog pens over here to the left, correct?
Yes, sir.
And right in front of that, one of the dog pens, is a hose that is neatly coiled around a hose, something holding the hose, right?
That's what it looks like.
Okay, go ahead. How about go to 11:12?
How you doing? What's up?
Okay, now, this, Mr. Waters asked you about this just a moment ago when he said, how you doing when somebody walked up. You would concede to me that but for that one quip, he appears to be distraught over the death of his wife and son?
He appeared visibly upset.
Yes, okay, other than this, how you doing sort of thing, right?
Correct.
Okay, also, we see him in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts, correct?
Yes, sir.
I've looked at your report, I looked at everybody that encountered him that night. No report indicates any blood visible on him. You would agree with that?
I didn't observe any.
What?
I did not observe any.
Okay. It's a white shirt.
Yes, sir.
If you noted blood on him, you would have put that in your notes or reported that to somebody, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about, let me see, 1845.
Told that it's a shotgun pistol slotted in my It's 300 blackout. 300 black.
Stop 1 second. That's you apparently determining the shell casing you found is a 300 blackout, correct?
The one that I marked, yes, sir.
The one that was in the gravel.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all the video I have. Just a couple final questions. Since right, I have no further questions.
Redirect.
Very briefly, Your Honor. Are you a first responder?
Yes, sir.
Your first job is safety, correct?
Yes, sir.
Second job is to protect the scene, is that correct?
Objection leading.
Thank you. Tell me what your jobs as a first responder are again.
Yes, sir. We secure the scene, make sure there's no current threat for additional first responders. We then secure the scene, make sure that nobody comes in that's not supposed to, so that we preserve any evidence that's there.
As part of your training to avoid disturbing the scene as best you can.
Yes, sir.
Still paying attention to your primary role.
Yes, sir.
As part of your training and your experience and what you try to do is if you do see
Objection,
evidence.
Your Honor, leading.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor. If you are on scene and you do see evidence while you were there, what is your standard operating procedure in that event?
I would mark it
And why do you do that?
just to bring awareness to it so that it's not disturbed.
Is your job to be a crime scene investigator?
No, sir.
You're just marking that? I'll rephrase. You were asked earlier about apprehending any suspects. Was Mr. Murdaugh ever in custody?
No, sir, not to my recollection.
To your observation, was he allowed to move freely?
Yes, sir.
Was he allowed to interact with people who came to talk to him?
Yes, sir.
Was he ever placed in the back of a police car?
Not that I'm aware of.
Never put in handcuffs?
No, sir.
Was he being treated as a suspect when you were there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down. Put the lights back up. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll break for lunch. We will resume at 2:15. Please do not discuss the case. In recess till 2:15.